Others travel through time. Dominating the martial arts world, accompanied by fine wine and beautiful women, with kings, nobles, and generals, would it be better to have the courage? Mu Xian's crossing. Dominating the Jianghu. Brother, come on, look to the left. The one who moved mountains and demolished houses is called Zhu Ignorance. Looking at the one on the right side, Chao Jingchen, who can easily make martial arts dramas go back 20 years with just a gentle step, is called Chao Jingchen. The person who used Taizu Long Fist to fight over 100 people in front of him is called Xiao Feng. Behind him, there is a little white-faced person who is stepping on the waves and crying, begging you to take his sisters home for the Chinese New Year. The little white face had not yet approached when it was kicked away by a man wearing a ghost mask, saying that he wanted to take his daughter home in this world of martial arts. Whoever loves to dominate will dominate. I just want to live well. Open a medical clinic, earn some money, marry a wife, and enjoy life. Of course, the martial arts world is so chaotic, and the place to open a medical clinic is also quite sophisticated. Mu Xian thinks that Qixia town is quite good, with low martial arts value and safety. When he has time, he can also watch sitcoms, Bashi. P.S. This book is also known as, I Really Want to Live, The Way of Go, 7 sections, and, A Poison Master Who Doesn't Want to Be a Divine Doctor Is Not a Good Hero, keywords of the novel. I have no pop-ups at the Comprehensive Military Medical Center. I download the complete collection of the TXT at the Comprehensive Military Medical Center, and I read the latest chapters at the Comprehensive Military Medical Center. Chapter 1. I Really Didn't Cheat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. I Really Didn't Cheat. It's been so long since I've played, how come the interface of Jin Yong's Heroes 5 has changed like this? The 4 symbols technique of heavenly intention. Isn't this the martial arts of the magic sword life and death chess? Innate body-breaking invisible sword energy. Isn't this Guan Chi's? In a bright room, a young man is crossing his legs, swaying his slippers, and focusing on the content on the computer in front of him. This man's name is Mu Xian, and in terms of appearance, he is just like the readers present here. My family background is pretty good, right? The large keys next to the mouse are all his. To be precise, the house to which this large key belongs, the entire building, is his. On weekdays, I just eat, drink, sleep, and then go collect rent. The days are very dull and boring. Today, Mu Xian had a sudden idea and wanted to play the legendary game of Jin Yong, which he had not played in a long time at first. This game made Mu Xian very addicted, and it was not an exaggeration to say that he stayed up all night, collecting various martial arts from it, in order to start learning the Tai Xian Jing and become illiterate. These are all his beautiful memories. Of course, there are also dungeons in the estate where you can play, binding, but after turning on the computer, when Mu Xian was ready to play, the interface for selecting talents at the beginning turned into a bunch of other options. Anyway, let's do it first. After completing the reputation task of Xiao Ao, go collect the rent. Mu Xian shook his head and didn't pay much attention. Let's assume he's the latest version. Mu Xian fixed his gaze and looked at the first question displayed on the screen. Which of the following martial arts do you most want to master? A Tianyi 4 symbols technique. B congenital body breaking invisible sword. Qi C1 sword leads the world. D2 sleeved green snake. Mu Xuan looked at the 4 options in front of him, without even thinking about them, and directly ruled out the 4th one. As for the others, the 4 symbols of heavenly intention technique and 1 sword are both martial arts in the game of magic sword life and death chess. The former can control up to, while the latter emits laser. The power of the latter is higher than that of the 4 symbols technique, but there are flaws in it. Mu Xian also doesn't know if he chose this thing, and will suddenly pause and be killed by the boss when fighting monsters in the game. This is a deadly thing. After much thought, Mu Xian still decided to choose the second one, the innate and invisible sword energy that breaks through his body. This martial art is one of the three great wonders in Wen Ruoyan's novels, with infinite power and wonder. Powerful and without any sequelae, Mu Xian's brain twitched before choosing something else. Although it is said that to learn the innate body-breaking invisible sword Qi, one must first learn the innate invisible fingerless sword. However, after entering the game, gaining more experience and upgrading is not a simple task. After selecting the first option, the game interface changes. What else? Mu Xian frowned. Continuing to focus on the content on the screen. What kind of knowledge do you most want to acquire while wandering in the martial arts world? A clever hands bring back spring be deadly poison master C weapon casting D iron mouth straight cut. Mu Xian reviewed the options above one by one, and it was obvious that the first one corresponded to the doctor, the second was the method of poisoning, the third was probably the master of forging, and the fourth was probably a fortune teller. Mu Xuan wants to choose the first two. But the first and second ones made Mu Xian a bit conflicted. I chose the first one, which should be a talent for injury recovery. As for the second one, maybe after choosing it, I can still refine poison and solve some bosses. As for the other two, Mu Xian did not consider them. It's just a game, doesn't there seem to be a saying about weapon casting in Jin Yong's heroes? And fortune telling, what can this thing do? Just as Mu Xian was struggling, the mouse pointer on the screen in front of him moved by himself, and the first two options were automatically selected. Can you choose two? Why does the mouse still move on its own? The phenomenon of the mouse automatic just now made Mu Xian feel a bit flustered, but as the interface changed, Mu Xian finally relaxed. The game has restored its original interface. Mu Xian chooses to start with a self-created character. As for the name, it's called Mu Xuan. At the beginning of the game, it still shows a woman being teased by a thug and then rescued, and a conversation begins again. Mu Xuan was familiar with the road and chose literary knowledge, money, and meridian knowledge in sequence. After entering the game, there is another plot where character images are set up. Mu Xian chose a character with a sword. After determining the male and character image, it is time to set the initial talent. Genius is divided into 5 parts. Arm strength, backbone, agility, intelligence, and appearance. The initial values for these 5 parts are only 5 points. There are a total of 10 randomly assigned talent points, and all of these 10 points can be added to the 5 major talents. Stop after use. I really didn't cheat. Mu Xuan looked at the talent points displayed in the lower left corner. 25, he was a bit confused. Mind him. If you don't use it, you're just a fool. Mu Xuan's fingers connected, his arm strength reached his appearance, and all 5 parts were fully tapped. Okay. Mu Xuan looked excitedly at the computer interface. He couldn't wait to see what it looked like to see the innate body-breaking invisible sword Qi unleashing a killing spree inside. Mu Xian frowned as his computer suddenly went black, catching him off guard. What is the situation? Mu Xuan leaned forward and wanted to carefully examine it. But the next moment, the computer suddenly emitted bursts of red light, which even continued to spin and eventually formed a vortex. Quickly, Mu Xian didn't react at all, didn't flash, and the next second, his head instantly disappeared into the computer. Then comes the body. From the beginning of the mutation to completely immersing oneself in the red light of the computer, it was only a second. Mu Xuan only felt like he was falling from the sky. In the darkness, waves of blue light rushed towards Mu Xian's body from all directions. Congenital body-breaking invisible sword Qi, congenital invisible finger sword, congenital invisible divine skill. Waves of martial arts content are squeezing into his mind. Not yet. After that, another pile of knowledge was directly stuffed into Mu Xian's head. Hu Qingyu Medical Classic, Medicine King Nerve, Lai Yao Medical Classic, Xiaoyao Medical Classic, Tian Shu, Su Wen Wang Nangu's Poison Classic, Feast Poison Classic, Western Poison Classic, 5 Poison Secret Transmission. Don't wait for Mu Xian to relax a bit. Then came another wave of soreness, and Mu Xian felt himself instantly becoming chilly, as if a pair of big hands were rubbing and kneading his body and face recklessly. The entire process lasted for at least half an hour. Then a warm feeling came over him, and he could feel his clothes all over him. That is to say, he cannot move now, otherwise he would have to touch the fabric of his clothes carefully. Without waiting for Mu Xian to struggle hard, his waist sank as if something was hanging on it. Then a pile of meridians and acupoint knowledge flooded into Mu Xian's mind. For a moment, so much knowledge flooded into his mind, and Mu Xian felt a bit tired and his brain was exhausted. Darkness enveloped Mu Xian, and those blue dots gradually disappeared. After an unknown amount of time, Mu Xian seemed to see a glimmer of light in his daze. In addition to the bright light, Mu Xian also felt someone tapping his face. That burst of strong light made Mu Xian a bit unresponsive, but when he adapted to it, Mu Xian could also see the scene in front of him clearly. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. A White House. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. A White House. A middle-aged man is leaning his head towards him, pouting. Mu Xian's expression in his eyes instantly changed from confusion to fear, and he slapped the middle-aged man to the side. "Hey, why are you like this?" A crisp voice rang out, and Mu Xian frowned. Looking aside, he saw a young woman dressed in green clothes and with a sweet appearance standing forward, squeezing her waist with both hands and staring fiercely at Mu Xian. Looking to the side, two people were lying on the ground, wielding long knives, dressed in coarse linen clothes, with blood flowing from their mouths and noses, clearly dead. On the right side near the stone wall, there are two carriages parked, one with a box on top, and the other with a shed, obviously for people. In front of each of the two carriages stood a young man, one of whom was of medium stature but had short hair. Compared to the other long-haired men, he was indeed somewhat strange. As for the other young man, he was thin and slender, like a bamboo pole. "Hey, Anan, they managed to save us at least. Just say a few words less." The short-haired man quickly stepped forward and grabbed the young woman. Saving people. The young woman's aura couldn't help but weaken by 2 points upon hearing these words. "Even if you save someone, you can't hit my dad." It's okay, it's okay. This little brother looks like me and has some stress reactions, which is also very reasonable." The young man who had been slapped by Mu Xian earlier walked forward again, rubbing his face and saying with a smile. "But I made a statement beforehand, this is called artificial respiration, a life-saving method from outside the domain. I, Chen Muchan, am a serious person." This middle-aged man was afraid of Mu Xian's overthinking, so he quickly explained. Mu Xuan frowned as he listened to this person's words. He had not yet recovered from the feeling of various knowledge being stuffed into his head. "Who are you? Where is this?" Mu Xian was stunned for a while, looked left and right, and confirmed that there were no modern equipment before finally confirming that he had traveled. Combined with the strange things in his mind and the various choices he made while playing games, Mu Xian subconsciously thought he had traveled into the world of JY Heroes 5. Cough. The middle-aged man coughed softly upon hearing this, and the thin young man beside him quickly stepped forward, looking like a straight man. This is the famous Dr. Chen Mukan from Qixia town. The two great divine doctors of Guanyang Prefecture, East Chen and West Shui, and that Chen, are my master, and Chen Muchan is also one of them. Chen Muchan listened to the compliments of the young man beside him, his mouth slightly raised, and he kept waving his hand, low key, low key. It seems that Mu Xian has heard of the name Chen Muchan. But the two place names of Guanyang Prefecture and Qixia town are like thunder piercing through his ears. Wulin spin-off. JY Heroes 5 brings oneself to the world of martial arts legends. This sounds so outrageous. Also, are you sure that the world outside the martial arts world can use the innate invisibility sword energy that breaks through the body? Seeing that Mu Xian had no response, Chen Muchan couldn't hold his face and said, "No, little brother, haven't you heard of Tianhe Clinic?" Chen Muchan leaned forward and said with a smile, pointing at himself while speaking. "Tianhe Medical Center." Mu Xian widened his eyes. "Good guy, the doctor's joke." Lu Ruoxin. Forgive Mu Xian. When he heard about Tianhe Medical School, the first thing that came to his mind was medical school laughter. And when he thought of medical school laughter, the first person he thought of was Lu Ruoxin. As for why? Well, it's very soft, big, very white. If this is not remembered deeply, then Mu Xian is not a pure man. Besides Lu Ruoxin, Mu Xian's next thought is naturally the protagonist, Zhu Ignorance. Mu Xian blurted out. Chen Muchan's smile froze instantly in front of him, while the rest of the crowd turned to a chubby man holding the reins, who was Zhu Ignorance blurted out by Mu Xian. "Wow, brother Zhu, you're even more famous than my father." Chen Muchan was pondering how to sweep away this awkward topic, but his thoughtful little cotton jacket directly exposed this fact. Cough cough, little brother, it's like this. We were about to move to the capital when we ran into the bandits from Cuiwei Mountain halfway through. Just as they were about to take action, you fell off the mountain and killed these two people. Chen Muchan said, looking up and down at Mu Xian with a strange expression. At the beginning, Mu Xian had a bewildered expression on his face, and he didn't feel much better either. He had just diagnosed Mu Xian's pulse and observed carefully. Although Mu Xian had a sword by his side and had no bones, it can be said that he was also an ordinary person. But this is just an ordinary person. If he falls from such a high height and doesn't die, it's okay. He hasn't been injured yet. This is totally out of line. His mother. Little brother saved our family's life. If you have any requests, just let me know. As long as Chen Muchan can do it, I will never refuse. Mu Xian's mind has become somewhat clear. I have already traveled through it and cannot go back. The most important thing is to live a good life. Although medical school comedy and martial arts spin-offs both fall under the category of sitcoms. However, compared to the latter, it is still safer. The world that Mu Xian yearns for is one where his military strength is low and he lives happily. Although there is danger, it is not much. Although he has martial arts secrets in his mind, he hasn't practiced them yet. Even if he wants to go for a stroll, it depends on his own strength. Xuan has decided that Qixia town is here, not going anywhere. He will continue to struggle and practice martial arts when he has nothing to do. When he is bored, he will go to Tongfu Inn to watch a live version of the plot. Living like this for a lifetime is also quite good. Dominate the martial arts world and do whatever you like. I want to settle down in Qixia town, but I was in the deep mountains and forests before, so I didn't. Xuan couldn't recall what ancient ID cards and household registrations said for a moment. Chen Muchan was quick to understand registered residence, right? Mu Xian nodded repeatedly. Just as Chen Muchan was about to speak, Chen Anan beside him spoke up, "Hi, what's going on? Anyway, my dad also said that after this trip to the capital, we won't come back. The previous clinic was also empty, so why not just give it to you directly?" Chen Muchan opened his mouth and was also shocked by his daughter's despicable behavior. There are 2 floors up and down, and there is also another courtyard. Just give it to me if you want. Do you know how much it would cost if it were sold? He even wanted to take action secretly just now, but his fingers knocked these 2 mountain bandits unconscious. Isn't Mu Xian going to take action? Dad, this is what you taught us. A drop of kindness, when a bucket of water reciprocates. It's when a spring reports back. Zhu Ignorance kindly reminded on the side. Chen Anan glared angrily and said, "Anyway, that's what it means. Give him a bucket of water to repay every drop of kindness, and for the kindness of saving his life, shouldn't we give him a place to hide? Chen Mukin sighed and said, get it. My own daughter has started to morally kidnap him. Blame him. It's all his fault, he shouldn't have hidden his martial arts. Send it, I'll send it. Chen Muchan is a mute person who eats huanglian, unable to express his suffering. However, although they lost a bit, as Chen Anan said, they are afraid that the Seven Heroes town will not come back again. Instead of selling it, it's better to give it directly to this guy. Anyway, the price of this house can be earned back by sneaking out a few missions. Just take it as a thank you for not exposing his martial arts skills. Well, little money. Yes, it's just a little money. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Settling in Qixia town. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 4. In people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. In people, Chen Muchan said, and the two of them got on the carriage again. This time driving in the town, it was much more stable, after all, it was a cobblestone road. Quickly, the carriage came to a stop again, and the sound of selling was incessant. Xuan got off the car and saw the four big characters of Tongfu Inn on his left side at a glance. A melody rang out in my mind, hey, brother. In addition to the Tongfu Inn, there are also many people on the street, many of whom carry weapons and exude a strong martial arts atmosphere. This kind of scene, as well as the ferocious expressions of people in the rivers and lakes, seems to be telling Mu Xian that this is not a sitcom, but the real world. The world of martial arts. Here, although there may be jokes, crises also exist. It's okay, don't be afraid. With the East Factory, West Factory, Genie Guard, Hulong Mountain Villa, and 6 gates around, people in the martial arts world dare not attack ordinary people. Rest assured. Chen Muchan is a human spirit. He could see the fear and panic in Mu Xian's eyes at a glance, and comforted him with a smile. Mu Xuan looked at the people in the martial arts world and nodded lightly. Chen Muchan in front was opening the door, but suddenly heard Mu Xian exclaim in shock, Hulong Villa. Chen Muchan listened to Mu Xian's voice and immediately stopped moving. He turned his head and looked at him with a look that seemed like he was looking at a fool. Don't tell me, you're in the mountains. Your master doesn't even talk to you about things in the martial arts world. Chen Muchan laughed as he spoke, we, a group of people who don't understand martial arts, all know various legends in the martial arts world. You are both wielding a sword and jumping off a cliff, can you still not know? After Chen Mukin finished speaking, he turned his head and opened the door. The original display of Tianhe Medical Hall appeared in front of Mu Xian. As Chen Muchan said, he only brought a plaque with him when he left this time, and all the remaining things, such as medicine cabinets, pots and pans, were left for Mu Xian to use directly. You can ask the opposite exhibition hall about those common knowledge in the martial arts world. He has a clear door, and I'm in a hurry. Here's the key, I'll leave it for you. Let's go, and finally let me introduce you to a few friends who have known me. They have been in Qixia town for some time, and from now on, you will become neighbors. Say hello and you will have some care. Chen Muchan handed the key to Mu Xian and then walked towards the opposite side. Mu Xian followed closely behind. It is exactly the same as Mu Xuan's impression of Tongfu Inn. In the lobby on the first floor, several tables and chairs are placed in order. A staircase facing the door leads directly to the guest rooms on the second floor. Oh, Uncle Chen, didn't you go to the capital? Why did you come back? Mu Xian was just looking at the decorations of the inn when a man dressed in coarse cloth with a cloth hanging on his shoulder approached with a smile. Hi, that's a long story. Chen Muchan greeted everyone with a smile. As soon as she finished speaking, a woman slowly walked down the stairs, holding a small fan in her hand. Uncle Chen. How did you come back? This strong Shangxi flavor is undoubtedly Tong Xiangyu. Oh my god, I heard Uncle Chen's voice even when I was in the kitchen. Tong Xiangyu's words fell, and another person rushed out from the place behind the stairs that connected to the kitchen. That person is a bit overweight, and their hairstyle is on par with Zhu Ignorance, even shorter. Judging from this design, Mu Xian knew that this person was Li Dezui. Where are scholars? Chen Mukin greeted the crowd with a smile, looked left and right, and then asked. After seeing you off in the morning, he will go collect the payment. You know, not long after Lao Xing became a constable, he was a bit excited and could easily pull out his sword. Many customers had already fled. Tong Xiangyu's expression changed and he said with disdain. Uncle Chen, how did you come back? A crisp childlike voice rang out, and a little girl with red lips and white teeth rushed out from the backyard. It is obvious that she is Mo Xiaobei, the sister-in-law of Tong Xiangyu. The current timeline is that Lao Xing has just become the constable of Qixia town, which means that Xiaoguo has not yet arrived. Yeah, didn't you leave this morning? Why did you come back? Just bring your first grade, where are Anan and the others? Tong Xiangyu looked outside the door and did not see the figures of Chen Anan and others. Anan and the others are still waiting for us, I'll just make a long story short. After Chen Muchan finished speaking, he told Tong Xiangyu about how they left Qixia town and encountered bandits on Suiwei Mountain, where Mu Xian descended from the sky to save them. And it was stated that in the future, Mu Xian would move into the empty house he left behind and continue to open a medical clinic. That's how things are. I just came here to say hello to everyone. I'll be neighbors from now on, so I need to take care of myself. Chen Mukin smiled and said. After speaking, he introduced the in-crowd to Mu Xian again. Tong Xiangyu took the lead in stating, we've been neighbors for a year, and we've been like a family for a long time. Uncle Chen's life-saving benefactor, then let's drop a few life-saving benefactors. Uncle Chen, don't worry, we will definitely take more care of the Mu Xian brothers. Yes, if there's anything I need in the future, I'll come to you, brother Bai. I have a clear door around Qixia town. Old Bai smiled and said, just now he looked at Mu Xian and confirmed that he didn't know martial arts, and his vigilance was also lowered a lot. Just an ordinary person. And me. What do you want to eat in the future? Let me tell you, big mouth brother. Back then, when I was at the Yellow Crane Tower. He patted his chest with his big mouth, ready to brag, but before he could finish speaking, everyone's eyes made him break through a bit. No, what do you mean? I think he bragged, right? He just blew it. When I was a chef, I was proficient in all four major cuisines of Sichuan, Shandong, Huai, and Guangdong. Also, if anyone provokes you in the future, tell your big mouth brother. Who dares not get along with you? That's because they can't get along with me, that's because they can't get along with my uncle, that's because. Before the big mouth could finish speaking, everyone spoke in unison, I can't get along with the court. His big mouth seemed to have been accustomed to it for a long time, and he ignored everyone. He patted Mu Xian's shoulder and stung his neck, asking, you ask them, do they dare not get along with the court? Thank you very much, big mouth brother. Mu Xiangong felt grateful. With a big smile, he patted Mu Xian's shoulder. As long as he cooperated with his pretense, he was a good brother. 2 words, comfortable. 3 words, give face. In the future, if you have a headache, feel free to come to me. My medical skills may not be as good as Uncle Chen's, but treating a minor illness is still not a problem. Free Mu Xian smiled and said. As for medical skills, they are not as good as Chen Muchan. This is just Mu Xian's politeness. Carrying a collection of medical classics and poisonous scriptures, when Mu Xian digests all the medical classics and poisonous scriptures in his mind, he is afraid that his medical skills and the use of poison will be unparalleled in the world. Okay, everyone knows me now, so I'll leave first. Anan and his team are still waiting for me. Chen Muchan smiled and said, then followed Zhu Ignorance out of the inn. Everyone waved with a reluctant expression. Big mouth, a bit of hard food. Let's clean up Mu Xian this afternoon. Tong Xiangyu waved her hand and smiled, saying, you pushed me back into the inn. It has to be said that this kind of environment is indeed the living environment that Mu Xian dreams of. Since time travel has become a fact and he cannot change it himself, Mu Xian still has the right to choose his living environment. Qixia town is great, slow-paced, not too much scheming, and its strength is still low. The most crucial thing is that as soon as I become a family with a house, have a place to work, and have a stack of silver bills in my arms. I will never starve to death in this lifetime. For someone like Mu Xian who doesn't want to dominate the martial arts world, is there any better place than here? No. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Comprehensive Martial Arts and Ming Dynasty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Comprehensive Martial Arts and Ming Dynasty. Brother, if you ask me this, you're asking the right person. After 3 rounds of drinking, Mu Xian and the others were already familiar with each other. Old Bai also drank a lot, but it was already evening. Drink as much as possible, so as not to delay his work the next day. Mu Xuan just asked Lao Bai about the experts on Lake Baijiang, and Lao Bai seemed to open a conversation box, hugging Mu Xuan's shoulder and chattering incessantly. In our Ming dynasty, it's more than one expert. Lao Bai began his performance. Speaking of the court first, Zhu, the Iron Gallbladder God Marquis of Hulong Mountain Villa, ignored him and can be considered the top expert of the Ming dynasty official. Below him, there are also Chao Jingchun from the East Factory, Qixia from the Six Gates sect, and Zhuge Zhenghua from the God Marquis Mansion, all of whom are famous masters and experts in the martial arts world. In the martial arts world, led by the Shaolin and Wudang sects, the Chuanjin sect's status plummeted 20 years after Wang Zhenren's death. Now, its position in the Taoist sect is completely inferior to that of Wudang with Zhang Zhenren in charge. In addition, there are countless sects such as the Five Mountain Sword sect, Beggar sect, 8 Great Schools, Sun and Moon Divine sect, Ming sect, and so on. Old Bai spoke more and more vigorously. Mu Xuan's heart gradually sank as he listened. He is too young. At first, he thought this world was a world of medical laughter and martial arts legends. But when Chen Muchan spoke of the Hulong Mountain Villa, Mu Xian was stunned. He had already realized something was wrong. Now, Old Bai had said a lot in one go, and Mu Xian was sweating profusely, firmly determined to stay in Qixia town and not go anywhere. Simply put, this world is a brand new one, and the official court is the Ming dynasty. The current emperor is also an unprecedented one in history, known as Ming the Emperor by other countries. The area of this world is several times larger than in the previous life. There are countless neighboring countries, including Mongolia, Yuan, Dali, Tubo, Western Xia, Dalio, Dajin, and Japan. In the past, Emperor Taizu was wise and powerful, and neighboring countries bowed down to pay homage and dared not cause trouble. However, now that Emperor Mingda is young, various countries have set their sights on recruiting martial arts experts, and the undercurrent is surging. The struggle between countries is endless, and in the martial arts world, it is a bloody scene. Old Bai only knows a little about other countries, and what he talks about the most is still about the affairs of the Ming martial arts world. Wudang, Shaolin, Chuanjin, Amei, Kongtong, Kunlun, 5 Sacred Mountains, Sun and Moon Divine Cult, Yihua Palace, Mingjiao. Mu Xuan asked repeatedly, and in the end, the names he heard the most from Old Bai were the 5 wonders of the Central Plains, the northern Xiaofeng and southern Murong, the world's greatest hero Yan Nantian, as well as the names of experts such as Jiang Feng and Inviting Moon and Lianqing. Only then did he confirm that although there were many martial arts characters in this world, most of them were still based on the characters in the works of Jin and Gu. I just don't know why there's suddenly an extra God Marquis Mansion. But it's not unacceptable either. If Mu Xian were to be given a bunch of cultivators from the Qin dynasty and characters from the twin dragons of the Tang dynasty who could shatter the void, then Mu Xian would suffer a severe headache. It is not an exaggeration to say that the military power has collapsed. Who is strong and who is weak, Mu Xian doesn't know how to compare. The current situation is just right. Mu Xuan chased after Lao Bai again and asked some questions about the Shenhe mansion. After all, Zhuge Jingme in the original work, with a stunning move and a shot that was almost as powerful as a nuclear explosion. But when Mu Xian learned from Lao Bai that ruthlessness was a cold and beautiful woman sitting in a wheelchair, he breathed a sigh of relief. Stable, it's not the original work, it's just a movie from the 4 famous captors. The ones inside are quite outrageous, such as the merciless mind-reading technique, the cold-blooded transformation into a werewolf, and Shigeng's ability to manipulate ice and fire in the western region's magic, and in Yinshan's absorption magic. Can still accept it. After accepting the basic worldview of this world, Mu Xian let out a heavy sigh. Accepting still requires some time to digest. Old Bai, did you just mention the Great Master? Is this realm? Mu Xian asked. This world is not simple, he should indeed ask more questions. Oh, that's right too. If you're studying medicine and don't understand the realm of martial arts, it's normal. Old Bai drank too much, shook his head, nodded gently, and then continued to explain, along the way of martial arts, from low to high, the first thing is to master basic martial arts skills that are not mainstream. At most, these types of skills can be used to deal with ordinary employees, but compared to those with internal strength, they are far from being good. After gaining internal power, it can be divided into 3 levels based on the number of meridians connected. 3rd level, 2nd level, 1st class, innate, master, and great master. As for the land immortal level above the great master, it has nothing to do with the human meridians. As for how to break through, I don't know. Martial arts practitioners need to start from the 12 meridians to connect their meridians. Among these 12 meridians, connecting 4 meridians is considered a second-rate realm. If connecting 8 meridians is considered a first-class realm, and if all 12 meridians are connected, it is considered innate. From birth, one must start to connect the 8 extraordinary meridians. After the 6 extraordinary meridians except for the Ren and Du 2 meridians are connected, one enters the Grandmaster realm. If all the Ren and Du 2 meridians are connected, and eventually run through the 2 bridges of heaven and earth, it is the Grandmaster realm. If the number of meridians connected to these realms is the same, and based on the amount of internal energy, each realm can be divided into 4 small realms. Early, middle, and late stages, as well as perfect ones. The order in which these meridians are connected also requires attention, and one cannot act recklessly. Old Bai obviously drank too much and started to teach Mu Xian the precautions for meridian connection, completely ignoring whether to expose his knowledge of martial arts. For example, these 12 orthodox scriptures need to be unblocked first. Han Taiyin Lung Meridian. Before Lao Bai could finish speaking, Mu Xian suddenly interrupted. Old Bai instantly realized, sweating profusely, that he had talked a bit too much today. You should know that his character is not skilled in martial arts. The flow of qi and blood in the 12 meridians is in the order of the Han Taiyin Lung Meridian flowing into the Hand Yangming Large Intestine Meridian at the index finger end. And sequentially, it flows into the foot Yangming Stomach Meridian through the nasal wing, into the foot Taiyin Spleen Meridian through the big toe of the foot, and into the hand Shaoyin Heart Meridian through the heart. It flows into the small intestine meridian of the hand Sun through the little finger end, into the bladder meridian of the foot Sun through the inner canthus of the eye, into the kidney meridian of the foot Shaoyin through the little toe end of the foot, and into the pericardium meridian of the hand Jian through the chest. It flows through the ring finger end into the hand Shaoyang Sanjiao meridian, through the outer canthus of the eye into the foot Shaoyang gallbladder meridian, through the big toe of the foot into the foot Jian liver meridian, and through the lungs into the hand Taiyin lung meridian, completing a cycle. So, if you want to unblock the 12 meridians, it is most reasonable to do so in the order of qi and blood flow. Therefore, the 12 meridians should be the first to clear the Han Taiyin Lung meridian. Just now, when Lao Bai talked about meridians, Mu Xian's mind seemed to be automatically searching, and knowledge about meridians emerged from the medical classic and toxic classic. This feeling is quite peculiar. Yes, it's just the Han Taiyin Lung meridian. I've heard others say it too, and I don't know anything else. But we don't practice martial arts anymore, so it's just for entertainment. Lao Bai smiled and said. Just now, he spoke so much excitedly, and now he has sobered up quite a bit. Quickly getting up, he shouted and went to fetch bedding for Mu Xian. Although there were many pots, bowls, ladles, and pots in the clinic, there were not many clothes, bedding, and so on. Lao Bai cleaned up a clean set for Mu Xian and brought it over. Mu Xian selected a house on the second floor, and the two of them tidied it up for a while before finishing it. Tomorrow, you can tidy up yourself. If you want to make a plaque, just go to the east end of the town and find carpenterly to make it. If you want to buy a lock, I suggest going to the bridge at the east end of the town tomorrow and waiting for the carpenter Zhao from Baishir village to come and set up a stall and buy it from him. When you have all the necessary matters, I will take you to the Shilapu and ask Dr. Xue where his medicinal herbs are obtained. Bring in some medicinal herbs, your medical clinic. Even if it's fully formed, just choose a time to open. Before Lao Bai left, he briefly talked to Mu Xian about the things to be packed for tomorrow's opening. Mu Xian nodded lightly and bid farewell to old Bai. Although he was very tired, he had no intention of sleeping. You should know that in his mind, there is also an innate invisible sword energy that breaks through the body. Isn't it a waste of time for a modern person to accidentally obtain a martial arts secret script and not practice it? Although he is deep in the Seven Heroes town and intends to persist, he has no intention of causing trouble. But sometimes, if you don't cause trouble, trouble often comes to you automatically. If Mu Xian has enough strength, there is no need to worry so much. Having a sword is completely different from not having a sword. During the Qin Dynasty, there were also Tang Dynasty double dragons and Fengyun, which were not included. It was difficult to define the combat power, and the more they were, the easier it was to become chaotic. Finally, internal investment had already passed, so everyone should invest more. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Ji Shi Tang and San Bui. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Ji Shi Tang and San Bui. Xuan now knows a martial arts skill, which is the innate invisible sword energy that breaks through the body. It is said to be a martial arts skill, but this innate body-breaking invisible sword qi is based on the innate non-physical divine skill, and to practice innate body-breaking invisible sword qi, one must first learn the innate non-physical finger sword to lay a solid foundation. The innate invisible finger sword, which is said to be a sword technique with no substance, stimulates the internal energy to flourish from the fingertips and transform into a sharp qi sword to attack the enemy, hence it is called the finger sword. The way this sword technique is used is similar to that of the 6-meridian divine sword, but its subtlety and power are superior to the 6-meridian divine sword. Once you have reached a certain level of practice in the Xiantian Wuxiang finger sword and the Xiantian Wuxiang divine skill, you can start practicing the Xiantian breaking invisible sword qi. Practice martial arts first. This skill does not refer to internal skills, but to basic skills. For example, basic skills such as horseback riding to exercise the body. According to the normal process, Mu Xian also knew that he needed to lay a foundation first and then practice the innate invincibility divine skill. Mu Xuan is the only one on his own, so he has no idea how to lay the foundation. Reading those martial arts novels and dramas, besides taking a horse stance, it seems like you also need to take a medicinal bath. Mu Xian closed his eyes and pondered over the martial arts secrets in his mind, feeling conflicted. His talent is already full, and if he practices hard, he is likely to succeed. But in this way, isn't it a waste of my hard-earned talent? Why don't you wait and then find Lao Bai to use Qixia and see how to lay a foundation? Mu Xian hesitated for a moment, then closed his eyes and stopped thinking about the content of the innate invisible divine skill. I made a simple plan for tomorrow's day, made a plaque, bought a few locks and bedding, and finally went to the market to buy some groceries. After coming back, I'll go talk to old Bai and get him started. Oh, by the way, before we leave tomorrow, we need to go and exchange money first. Xuan had 100 taels of silver on his body, so he had to exchange them for scattered silver and a few hanging copper coins. Xuan closed his eyes, savoring the contents of the traditional Chinese medicine classic and pharmacopoeia in his mind, and soon fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, Mu Xian woke up from bed and looked at the unfamiliar environment around him. He didn't react for a moment, but later thought that he had already traveled like Tongfu Inn. Muxuan Medical Center also has a backyard with a well in it. Muxuan drew a bucket of water, cleaned it briefly, and then went straight to the bank. The name of Datong Bank is very ordinary. Mu Xian arrived a little early, and there was still a stick of incense before he could open the door, so he waited at the door. The few people waiting with Mu Xian immediately boasted and briefly introduced the extraordinary features of this Datong Bank to Mu Xian. Simply put, this is the industry of Huajia. Which flower house? In just one sentence, it includes the 3 wealthiest families of the Ming Dynasty. The flower family in Jiangnan is led by Hua Ruling, but none of them are as famous as Hua Ruling's youngest son, Hua Manlu. Next is in Jia, who is located in the capital city and owns in Yunshan. However, the family's business has been fully handed over to Enshurgan, who is also known as the god of wealth of the Ming Dynasty. Are these 2 strong enough? There are even more powerful ones above them, 13,000. A magical name, it is said that apart from the immortal means he cannot achieve, there is nothing else he cannot do. The wealth accumulated is much more than that of the Anhua family. Mu Xian listened briefly but didn't pay much attention. Time has come, living is the first goal, everything else is illusory. Whether it's the Hua family or the An family, it has nothing to do with Mu Xian. Where else can he go if he doesn't come here to exchange, as his silver bill shows the Datong Bank? Quickly, the door opened and Mu Xian went in to exchange 50 taels of silver, 40 taels of scattered silver, and the remaining 10 taels were all exchanged for scattered copper coins. After consulting with the bank staff about the silver conversion rules, Mu Xian left the bank. The rest is as planned by Mu Xian. Due to the proximity, Mu Xian went to buy a few locks first. The locksmith said he came from Baishir village, which made Mu Xian a little distracted, thinking that this guy would be in danger of bloodshed. Later, passing by the vegetable market, Mu Xian bought some children's vegetables. Finally, I went to the carpenter's place and ordered a plaque. Muxuan needs to make a living by opening a medical clinic, so the name of this clinic naturally comes to mind. Muxuan had already thought about it. He had many medical classics and poisonous scriptures in his mind. It was only a matter of time before he could become a famous doctor and digest all those medical classics. Those divine doctors from others are all quite impressive, with some minor ailments that can't be cured on their own, right? Mu Xian possesses martial arts skills and those poisonous scriptures. In the future, he must make time to practice martial arts and prepare poison, right? This also represents the route that Mu Xian will take in the future, which is the elite route. For some minor illnesses and disasters, Mu Xian will not seek treatment. Treat difficult and complicated diseases as needed. In this way, Mu Xian can have sufficient time to practice martial arts and poison matching. With abundant poison and improved martial arts skills, Mu Xian has more self-protection power in this chaotic world. Then marry 7 other women, taking turns every 7 days, and live a lifetime like this, which is also a good choice. Everything returns to the starting point. If Mu Xian wants to follow the elite route and only treat difficult and complicated diseases, he must first establish the reputation of his own medical school, otherwise he will only treat difficult and complicated diseases. Who believes you? So, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. What Mu Xian needs to do is to honestly open a medical clinic for a period of time, and not refuse visitors. After gaining fame, he can proceed to the next step. Mu Xuan made 2 plaques, one called Jishitang. The other pair is called San Bui. The front one is used to make a name for himself, while the back one is to wait for Mu Xian to become famous before replacing it. As the name suggests, Jishitang means to save the world. As for the 3 no's of medicine, it was Mu Xian's inspiration from Lai Yaoer. Not treating difficult and complicated diseases, not treating bad moods, not treating unpleasant situations. However, in order to gain recognition, Mu Xian must at least honestly practice medical treatment for a year. After all, now that it's up, others will only treat Mu Xian as a big fool, without showing any ability, and dare to say that they don't treat him 3 times. Is this not a fool or something? After Mu Xian returned, he put the sign of San Bui in the warehouse and hung the sign of Ji Tang. As soon as Mu Xian hung up his front foot, he heard old Bai's voice in his back foot. "Oh, that's it. You're so hasty. Get a red cloth, and when it opens, you can uncover it. The opening ceremony or something is too complicated. Just opening directly, craftsmanship explains everything." Mu Xian smiled and said. After hanging the plaque, he put the stool in and then looked at Lao Bai, smiling as he leaned in. "Ah, what are you doing?" The smile on Lao Bai's face gradually disappeared, and he hugged himself with both hands and tightened his clothes. He has seen many philanderers, whose eyes are the same as Mu Xian's. He knew he was handsome and dashing, but Mu Xuan couldn't look at him with such eyes either. Signed contract. I hope everyone can read the latest chapter and invest more. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. 5 Poisons Cult, Seeking Investment, Seeking Follow-Up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 5 Poisons Cult, Seeking Investment, Seeking Follow-Up. Old Bai, I can tell that you know martial arts, right? Mu Xian's words made Old Bai, who had just sat down, sit up like a spring. What do you mean? Lao Bai's voice grew louder, and the eyes of the surrounding guests all turned to him. Lao Bai quickly yawned and said, "The food and drink are so good." What do you mean? Lao Bai sat down, his face serious, and looked at Mu Xian, asking with a suppressed voice. What kind of thing? The people sent by the 4 elders. Or the 6-door strip, specifically looking for him. You know, I understand medical skills and I can tell that you have martial arts skills, which should be quite reasonable, right? Mu Xian asked softly, and Lao Bai nodded along, not denying, "Yes, I know martial arts, how can I drip it? I must declare in advance that I have already withdrawn from the martial arts world. I will not do anything that violates the laws of the Ming Dynasty by gathering people to fight. I am at odds with gambling and drug battles." Lao Bai's righteous words seemed to make Mu Xian ignore the fact that he had replaced yellow with dough. "If I don't let you fight, it's because I want to practice martial arts and establish a foundation. How can I establish this foundation? Medicine bath. Or Jama?" Mu Xian spoke up and asked, seeing that Old Bai was still hesitant. Mu Xian said again, "You don't want me to pass on my martial arts. I have martial arts in my hand, I just want to ask you how to lay a solid foundation." Lao Bai looked around and whispered, "Just don't let me pass on your martial arts skills. Fighting the foundation is not a secret in the martial arts world. If I tell you, I'll tell you. 4 words. Medicinal bath, Jama. I'll give you a recipe. You usually soak it in water and then stick to the Jama Bu every morning. After 1 month of taking a medicinal bath, you can start practicing internal skills. After 2 months of taking a medicinal bath to stab your horse, you can only practice moves." As Lao Bai spoke, he walked to the counter and wrote down a prescription, then handed it to Mu Xian. As Mu Xian looked at the prescription in his hand, his brain seemed to be moving on its own. Knowledge of various medical classics and pharmacopoeias naturally emerged, and the effects of various medicinal herbs recorded on the prescription, as well as the effects produced by their combination, instantly became clear to Mu Xian. Even, there are a few medicinal herbs that can be replaced, and the medicinal bath effect can be even better. Mu Xian accepted the prescription and decided to replace the herbs that could be replaced inside, and then took a medicinal bath according to the optimal solution. "Thank you, Old Bai." Mu Xian smiled and said. Old Bai heard this and waved his hand lightly. "Hi, what's the thank you for? It's just a prescription, but Mu Xian, after hearing my brother's advice, we can learn some martial arts to protect ourselves. Don't think about wandering the world and fighting and killing at any moment. It's too dangerous." Old Bai had a lingering fear on his face, clearly leaving an indelible impression on him while wandering the world. "Don't worry, I have a plan in mind." Mu Xuan smiled and then continued to ask, "Hey, Lao Bai, why does it take 1 month to cultivate internal skills in a medicinal bath, while cultivating martial arts requires 2 months of soaking horses in a medicinal bath?" Medical bathing not only expands and warms up meridians, but also trains the body. After a month of medical bathing, your meridians have expanded and warmed up, and you can naturally cultivate internal skills. But martial arts moves are different. In addition to having internal strength as support, martial arts moves also need to meet physical fitness standards. Some martial arts moves are more complex, and the body's flexibility is not enough. Some moves cannot be completed at all. If you force them, it is easy to harm the body, so you need to take a medicine bath to hone your body. Lao Bai briefly introduced. "No, brother. Just one more word, brother. The depth of the rivers and lakes is too deep for you to grasp. We can practice martial arts to protect ourselves, but don't get involved in things in the martial arts world." Seeing Mu Xian's thoughtful expression, Lao Bai couldn't help but speak up and advise him. He really didn't want to see Mu Xian, such a big and small guy, step by step enter the abyss. "Don't worry, there are so many experts in the martial arts world who kill without blinking an eye. How I cherish my life. How could I possibly get involved in things in the martial arts world?" Mu Xian smiled and patted Old Bai's shoulder. "Let's go, I need to go get some medicinal herbs, then pack up and recruit 2 more people. They will be ready to open in a few days. Come and play when you have time." Old Bai saw Mu Xian listen in and a smile appeared on his face. "Look, there's a young man who stumbled and was pulled back from the edge of the cliff by him. Wait, why use the word again? By the way, 2 years ago, there was a guy who wanted to venture into the martial arts world, but he stole his silver and then went home disheartened." Overall, Mu Xian was the second person he had dragged back from the deep waters of the martial arts world. When Chen Muchan left, some medicinal herbs were inconvenient to take away, so he gave all the remaining herbs to Dr. Xue. Therefore, if Mu Xian wants to buy medicinal herbs, he can either look for Dr. Xue, who has a lot of medicinal herbs in his hands. Then there are some medicinal herb merchants. Mu Xian doesn't know those medicinal herb merchants, so he can only seek help from Dr. Xue. Taking advantage of the fact that it was not completely dark, Mu Xian decided to go to the 18-mile shop first. It only took him half an hour to travel back and forth, and it was very fast. After Mu Xuan went, he directly reported Chen Muchan's name, and Xue Shini quickly sold him a batch of medicinal herbs, which were enough for Mu Xuan to use for the first half of the year. There is no such thing as contempt or slapping. Life in Qixia town is relaxed, and the people around him speak well. He really likes it here. Dr. Xue is so open-minded, and Mu Xian is also extremely sensible. Various praises never stop. Dr. Xue laughed heartily upon hearing this. It said that talking to NPCs can bring good things, but I'm not fooling you. It's just this thing, it's a bit hot. Mu Xian looked at the token in his hand, his expression conflicted. He doesn't want to get involved in the martial arts world, but medicinal herbs are so important. Mu Xuan needs to prepare various detoxifying and healing pills, all of which require medicinal materials. The more precious the medicinal materials used in some precious pills, the more precious they are. They are not something that a person with Mu Xuan's identity can buy. Not to mention the various poisonous herbs and insects that are used to prepare poisonous medicines. After Mu Xian, he had to contact a medicinal herb merchant, but what Mu Xian wanted to contact was a legitimate medicinal herb merchant. What is this? Mu Xuan looked at the token in his hand, his expression conflicted. On the front of the token, there were various poisonous insects and herbs carved, while on the back, there were the characters, 5 Immortals, written. Originally, Mu Xian had not yet realized what the 5 Immortals were, but when he heard the 3 words, 5 Immortals Cult, in the mouth of Dr. Xue, Mu Xian was stunned. 5 Immortals Cult is the name used by the people of the 5 Immortals Cult. Outsiders call them the 5 Poisons Cult. They are located in the Miao region and have all kinds of medicinal herbs, making them a natural treasure trove of feng shui. The technique of using poison in the 5 Poisons Cult is world-renowned. Each sect has a corresponding business to maintain its operation, and the 5 Poisons Cult is no exception. Their business is to sell medicinal herbs and poison to killer organizations. Xuan once saved an elder of the 5 Poisons sect in his early years. The elder was grateful to Xuan and gave him a sign, asking him to go find him if he had anything to do. Simply put, it is Dr. Xue, who is covered by the 5 Poisons Cult and provides free medicinal herbs. Don't think about providing medicinal herbs for free, Mu Xian. Xuan gave Mu Xian a token, asking him to go find someone from the 5 Poisons Cult and say he wants to buy medicinal herbs. Finally, when settling accounts, he took out the token to give Mu Xian a cheaper price. He doesn't know martial arts anymore. He really doesn't dare to come into contact with people from the 5 Poisons sect. Anyway, those medicinal herbs are enough for Mu Xian to use for half a year. During this time, he will first take a medicinal bath and then start practicing martial arts. Wait until you have the ability to protect yourself before dealing with people from the 5 Poisons sect. After all, those people from the 5 Poisons Cult have a poisonous character, which can also be considered as evil sects in the martial arts world. If they deal with others on their own and have no self-protection ability, it is like sheep entering the tiger's mouth. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Recruitment Notice, for follow-up and investment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Recruitment Notice, for follow-up and investment, Xuan. Mu Xian sat in the bathtub and couldn't help but moan. Before taking the medicine bath, he looked at the green liquid in the bathtub and thought it would be very painful or uncomfortable, but now he feels it, it's called a comfort. Mu Xian lay in the bathtub and began to recall the contents of the medical classics and pharmacopoeia in his mind. After taking the medicine bath, Mu Xian washed his body clean again and stretched lazily before going to bed to rest. A day has passed like this. The next morning, Mu Xian went to the inn across from him, found a scholar, and asked him to help him write a recruitment notice. Because some of the medical classics in his mind were written in small seal script, some in regular script, and some in cursive script, Mu Xian knew some of the various fonts, but knowing and being able to write were completely different things. Mu Xuan tried his own words and couldn't bear to look directly at them. Helpless, he could only find an expert like a scholar. How are you doing? Inside the inn, the scholar showed a proud expression and placed his brush aside. It's pretty good. Mu Xian nodded. Lao Bai leaned over with a critical expression, just a bit thin, not grand enough. Upon hearing this, the scholar immediately glared at Lao Bai and said, "You, who haven't read a book, are you still willing to comment on me?" "Yes, you have read it, and all the ancestral property you read has been lost." Old Bai showed no signs of weakness and ran on the bank directly. These past few days, Xuan has become familiar with the way people at the inn get along. It's normal for the two of them to argue with each other. Okay, you two continue. I'll put up a notice first. Xuan grabbed the notice and walked towards the outside. Taking the paste prepared too early, Xuan posted the recruitment notice on the wall. The changes in Qixia town are quite significant. On the street, a hunched old man walked slowly, turning his head left and right to look at the scene on the street, with a faint smile on his lips. The old man was looking at the scene on the street when a young man who was posting a notice entered his eyes. The old man's eyes were filled with astonishment, and he immediately walked forward and carefully scrutinized Xuan's back. Let's work together. Xuan looked at the recruitment notice on the wall and patted the dust on his hands. A bookkeeper is required to be proficient in math and accounting, with a monthly salary of 6 silver coins, not to mention various welfare benefits. Compared to the monthly salary of 2 silver coins on the opposite side, Xuan's 6 silver coins are already quite generous. Then there was a buddy, and Xuan recruited a buddy mainly to ask that buddy to help with the medicine. Can't Xuan prescribe medicine for someone while still having to personally apply it himself? This is too embarrassing, let alone tiring. Xuan didn't want to be so tired, so he decided to find a buddy. This guy is responsible for taking medicine, so he needs to know some knowledge about medicinal herbs, right? Even if you don't understand, you still need to be literate and clever. A wall-filled medicine cabinet, if the other party cannot read, how can they dispense medicine? If the other party is not smart, how can they remember the location of the medicinal herbs? Xuan had already planned that if the other party understood the knowledge of medicinal herbs, their monthly salary would be like that of a bookkeeper, all of which would be 6 silver coins. After all, both those who know accounting and those who know medicinal herbs are considered technical talents. If the other party doesn't understand medicinal herbs and only knows how to read, then they will be sorry and their monthly salary will have to be halved. There's no way, this is reality. Xuan shook his head, sighed, and turned to walk back to the clinic. Oh my God! As soon as Xuan turned around, he saw a person approaching with a smile. His big face had almost pressed against Xuan's body, and he was startled by the person. He took a few steps back and leaned against the wall. Careful examination revealed the person's appearance. This person is an old man with white hair, hunched over, with wrinkles on his face. He is wearing coarse cloth clothes and holding a straight cane in his hand. The cane is already wrapped in starch, which obviously has been used for a long time. Young master, are you hiring an accounting firm? Seeing an ordinary old man, Xuan couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. This person appeared silently behind him, frightening him to death. Little brother, are you hiring an accounting firm? Xuan was about to enter the house when the old man crossed his cane and asked with a smile. Xuan looked up and down at the person, nodded lightly, but then shook his head slowly and then followed closely. He wants to hire an accountant and a clerk, but this person. Is he too old? Just because of the wrinkles on the old man's face and his hunched figure, Xuan dare not provoke him. I have 10,000 taels of silver on myself. But I have already spent 400 taels of silver on buying medicinal herbs, and later Xuan will have to buy various rare medicinal herbs. There are many places where money flows like water. At such an old age, if this old man suddenly falls ill. Xuan shook his head, he dare not think. Uncle. Xuan shook his head and was about to speak when the old man spoke again. The old man knows a little about medicinal herbs and can read. I can also do this job of catching medicine. Puff, Xuan almost laughed and said, Uncle, come on, you come. Xuan took the old man to the entrance of the medical clinic and pointed to a wall of medicine cabinet facing the door. The one below is fine, but the top medicine cabinet requires a ladder. You're climbing a ladder at such an old age. Uncle, I run a medical clinic and have my own responsibilities. I don't want to get into trouble like a murder case. Mu Xian smiled and said. The old man laughed at the words and said, okay, you don't need the old man. That old man has no way. After the old man finished speaking, he sat on the side seat. These seats are placed at the opposite end, leaving a place for passers-by to sit and rest. Mu Xuan didn't bother him either. He walked into the house and started waiting for someone to come to his door. The conditions he offered were considered top-notch in various industries including Qixia town, and he didn't believe that no one came to his door. As expected, as soon as Mu Xian posted on his front foot, people came one after another. However, strangely enough, those people had just arrived at the door and had not yet entered, so they hurriedly left with their stomachs covered. Until the 10th one, Mu Xian saw the other person holding their stomach and leaving, and couldn't help it anymore. He quickly walked out and grabbed the person's wrist. This is not the first time that Mu Xian has felt someone else's pulse. The last time he felt his pulse, it was Mu Xian who felt his own pulse. When Mu Xian felt his pulse, the symptoms corresponding to various pulse conditions were reflected in the medical classics, and the knowledge in the medical classics appeared in Mu Xian's mind as if it had a built-in search. After a while, Mu Xian realized the symptoms and cause of this person's illness. Catching a cold. Mu Xian widened his eyes, unable to believe it. The first 9, plus this one, are they all catching a cold? Brother, I'll call you brother. I won't apply anymore. Don't hold on to me. The person who was grabbed by Mu Xian's wrist had tears in their eyes, clenched their legs, and said with a slightly tearful tone. Mu Xian's face was awkward, he let go of his hand and let the person leave. The person saw Mu Xian let go and quickly left, clutching his stomach while muttering, this shop is really a bit of a cult. Who knows who has stomach pain? It's really not deceiving people. Mu Xuan's face looked ugly. Looking left and right, it was still some time before the sun set. There were still many pedestrians on the street, and in the corner of the wall, there was a beggar named Xiaomi sitting begging for food. A little further outside, there was the old man sitting with his head drooping, little by little, clearly dozing off. Damn it, I don't believe it anymore. Mu Xian shook his head and turned back to the medical clinic. The old man lifted his shaking head and glanced at Mu Xian's back, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Old by, Pure Men. Seeking investment, seeking follow-up reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Old by, Pure Men. Seeking investment, seeking follow-up reading, Mu Xian's recruitment results were not ideal. 2 more people came behind, just like before, they both covered their stomachs at the door and left. Mu Xuan was extremely helpless and could only delve into the medical classics and pharmacopoeia in his mind. One night passed like this. The next day, just as Mu Xian opened the door, Lao Bai walked in with Big Mouth and Xiuzai following behind him. Early in the morning, what are you doing? Mu Xian couldn't help but laugh out loud when he saw Lao Bai and others with a serious expression on their faces. What kind of person did you provoke, kid? As soon as Lao Bai sat down, he immediately asked. Behind him, Big Mouth and the scholar looked serious, it really looked like that. Big brother, I have only been in Qixia town for 3 days now. How can I provoke people? Mu Xuan died unjustly, wanting to cry without tears. Old Bai instinctively gnawed on his nails, looked up and down at Mu Xian, and whispered, there's no one in Qixia town. What about before coming to Qixia town? Lao Bai's words are still probing. His identity is really disgraceful, and he cannot be careless about it. If Mu Xian really doesn't have any problems, he will definitely treat him like a half-brother, half-father, half-mother. Before I came to Qixia town, I had been learning from my master in the deep mountains. Where did I go to provoke others? Mu Xuan said angrily, and he could tell that anyone who came to apply for his job yesterday, without exception, was being ambushed by someone. Otherwise, Old Bai wouldn't have said that Mu Xian had provoked people. Are you the people who came to apply yesterday? Mu Xuan directly cut into the topic and asked. Old Bai didn't hesitate either. He had already trusted Mu Xian and said directly, yesterday, you came here to apply for a job and left with your stomach covered. I had noticed it a long time ago. When the last one slipped away, I followed up and checked, and found that they were all injected with extremely cold true qi, and then had diarrhea. So I asked if you had offended anyone. After Lao Bai finished speaking, the big mouth and scholar behind him looked at him one after another. They are aware of the fact that Lao Bai knows martial arts. He has some connection with Ji Wuming. It used to be quite complicated, and Lao Bai practices martial arts in the lobby every night after closing the door. Everyone knows that Lao Bai knows martial arts, but they don't know the strength of his martial arts anymore. It's been over a year and they haven't seen him before. In the past, Lao Bai used to hide and hide. Why did he confess to Mu Xian this time? Old Bai said the words, extremely cold true qi, which is no different from Old Bai admitting that he knows martial arts. Otherwise, how would he recognize it? It's okay, Mu Xian's family. Old Bai smiled and waved his hand. Extreme cold qi. How do I know who moved the hand? Mu Xuan complained incessantly. He had only been in this world for 3 days, and the people he provoked. Except for the 2 bandits from Haifeng's stronghold, no one else had provoked him. But those 2 bandits were killed by Mu Xian, and only Chen Muchan and the others knew about it. I may know who it is now. Mu Xian widened his eyes and looked at Lao Bai, saying word by word. After speaking, I wanted to look outside, but as soon as I took 2 steps, I stopped. He doesn't know martial arts. Just go like this, isn't it sending you to death? Old Bai, just yesterday there was an old man who came to my place to apply for a job, but was rejected by me. He sat at the door and after the fight, each person pulled one. You said they all pulled, who else could come and apply? Mu Xuan Dao. Lao Bai looked at Mu Xian with a speechless expression. What do you mean is, there's an old man who made everyone have diarrhea just to apply for the position of the person in your store. What's his plan? Tu Qian. You haven't opened a business here, what kind of money can you have? Are you a person? You. As Lao Bai spoke, he instantly broke his skills, his serious expression disappeared, and he began to laugh. Seriously, we're discussing the main matter. The scholar patted Lao Bai's shoulder, and when Lao Bai smiled at something very serious, it suddenly became strange. I noticed the old man yesterday. Last night, he stayed in our store. When he went upstairs, I took the opportunity to give him a hand and tested him. He doesn't know any martial arts skills, he's just an ordinary old man. Lao Bai smiled and said. Mu Xuan is a bit messy, so he really doesn't know who did it. Is it true that the people of Haifeng's stronghold knew that Mu Xian had killed the 2 of them, but they didn't dare to take action in the bustling market, so why not disgust Mu Xian? So those mountain bandits are not too imposing, are they? As for whether the old man's martial arts skills were so high that even Old Bai couldn't imagine, he concealed the past. This idea was immediately denied by Mu Xian when he shook his head. If you really don't like yourself, it's just a slap in the face. Why do you do this? Is it difficult to achieve the goal of forcing everyone to retreat and then forcing oneself to use him? If that's really the case, what is this old man's plan for? Mu Xuan and he have never met before. If that's really the case, there might only be one possibility. Mu Xian's face was solemn, and he told everyone about the incident where he accidentally killed 2 mountain bandits that day. Old Bai looked incredibly wise, caressing his chin and gently nodding. It's really possible. That group of mountain bandits can be said to do nothing wrong, and they also have a few coins in their hands. If they gather the money, they can really find a few experts and come to deal with you. In the same situation as yesterday, in the words of the Mafia and their team, this is called a demonstration, which is a more aggressive approach. Before we start, why not make some small moves to scare you first, preferably to scare you to the point where you are scared to the extreme before taking action to kill you. For example, who is trapped at home in their entire family, killing one when they go out, and having nothing to do as long as they stay at home. What happened? Several people who stayed at home were scared to death, and when time came, the rest were all killed. Listening to Lao Bai's words, Mu Xian had already begun to be afraid. If he had achieved great martial arts, he wouldn't have been afraid, but now he doesn't even know Mao's martial arts. Even if you want to use poison, there is no material. Lao Bai looked at Mu Xian and felt very conflicted inside. The frightened expression on Mu Xian's face didn't seem to be fake. Obviously, everything Mu Xian said was true and he had never deceived him. However, he thought Mu Xian was a member of the Six Gates or a member of the Sunflower sect. This made him feel a bit guilty. While he was genuinely treated by others, he had various suspicions. Sigh. The expression on Lao Bai's face gradually became firm, and the tiger didn't show any signs of aggression. Do you really think I'm a sick cat? Brother, let me apologize to you first. You don't have to worry about the rest. I'll go to Hafen village now. Don't worry, let's solve all the troubles at once. Old Bai's face was cold and resolute, and he said in a cold voice. At this moment, the demeanor of a thief is undoubtedly evident. De Mao and Xiuzai leaned against each other, staring blankly at Lao Bai in front of them. Please help me and the shopkeeper take a leave. I'll go back as soon as I go. Old Bai whispered softly, and then threw the cloth from his waist into Big Mouth's arms. Picking up the cloth, he is like a playful and smiling runner bending over to meet people. But if you put down the cloth, he is the notorious thief in the martial arts world of the past. Qixia town is a street, inquire about who the master is. Lao Bai shouted loudly and quickly walked out of the clinic. The direction of departure was Tsuewei Mountain. Is this still Lao Bai? The scholar sighed softly, and the Big Mouth on the side also spoke in agreement, you're too manly. Xuan didn't have that much emotion to express, he was just a little worried about Lao Bai's safety. However, with Lao Bai's skills, those mountain bandits shouldn't be his opponents, right? It's just that all the people who came to apply have fallen for it. Now this news has spread throughout the entire Seven Heroes town, and it's difficult for Mu Xian to recruit people. Xuan can wait for 10 days and a half a month. When the wind passes and the people in the town forget about this incident, they might be able to recruit someone. The plaques of Kamuxuan have all been made and hung up. It takes 10.5 days, which is too long. Xuan doesn't want to wait. Xuan was worried when he saw someone walking out of the inn across from him. It was the old man who came to apply for the accounting position yesterday. Xuan gritted his teeth and went all out. If he had any illness, he could treat it himself. Even if he was in his 70s now, he could still live for more than 20 years. Let him settle the accounts and take the medicine or something on his own. Mu Xian made up his mind and immediately ran towards the outside of the store. Hey! Uncle! This old man! What's going on? What's up, little brother? The old man smiled and looked at Mu Xian. Are you still planning to apply for an accounting position? You just need to do the accounting, you don't need to worry about anything else. Xuan directly cut into the topic and asked. The old man squinted his eyes and nodded, I'm alone, old man. It would be great to have a place to settle down. After a brief conversation between the two and signing the contract, Mu Xian's clinic welcomed the first assistant. The old man's name is Zhao Wan, and Mu Xian simply called him Zhao Bo. Considering the old man's legs and feet, Mu Xian thoughtfully arranged a room for the old man in the backyard. For Mu Xian, if he recruited talent who could handle accounting, this medical clinic would be considered established. Xuan has done everything on his own, such as seeking medical treatment, taking medicine, and decocting medicine. He's a bit tired, isn't it that he can't find anyone now? Let's talk about recruitment later. At this moment, on Suiwei Mountain, in the Black Wind Fortress, village leader Li Dali, with tears in his eyes, knelt on the ground and looked at the man wearing a nightgown on the high platform. Great hero, we really don't know a person named Mu Xian. Not to mention sending someone to trouble him. No, 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 no. Li Dali saw the man in black raise his hand and quickly waved, Great Xia, if you say we know each other, then we know each other. We will never provoke Mu Xian in the future, I swear to heaven. Li Dali was about to cry without tears. He really wanted to know which turtle bastard provoked the one named Mu Xian and threw the pot at them. In the inn, Mu Xian, who was helping to tidy up the room, watched as Zhao Bo in front of him suddenly sneezed, and his heart became even more swollen. This old man wouldn't have been bedridden just a few days of work, would he? Mu Xuan sighed, he had no choice. No one dared to apply, and he was in a hurry to start his own business. He couldn't be a mere commander. Let's make do with it. Zhao Bo, please rest early and we'll open tomorrow. After Mu Xian finished speaking, he left the room. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Mysterious Prescription, Foundations Forged, Seeking Follow-up, Seeking Investment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Mysterious Prescription, Foundations Forged, Seeking Follow-up, Seeking Investment. It was another night of medicinal bathing, and when Mu Xian woke up the next day, he was extremely energetic. Putting on a strong suit, Mu Xian walked into the yard and began to stab his horse. Crunch, this was the sound of the door opening. Zhao Bo stretched lazily and walked out with a cane in hand. He was not surprised to see Mu Xian poking his horse at the door. Still with the same smiling expression, he looked up and down and smiled, saying, Old man, I'll go get some breakfast and let you try my craft, the owner. Mu Xuan nodded. It would be great if someone cooked, so he wouldn't have to go across to grab food or go out to buy something to eat. Spend your cooking time on Zama, the faster you lay the foundation, the faster you start practicing. Mu Xuan doesn't want to experience the feeling he had yesterday again. That feeling is really uncomfortable. Mu Xian urgently needs the power to protect himself now. Chicken soup coming. Half an hour later, Mu Xian, holding a bowl and chopsticks, looked at Zhao Bo who walked out of the kitchen with a smile, and then looked at the chicken soup he had placed on the table. He dared not eat for a moment. Eat, why don't you eat? Zhao Bo supported his cane and said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Mu Xian also realized that Zhao Bo was not a pangolin. Mu Xuan took a bowl, took a sip, and pursed his lips. Wow, real people don't show up. This chicken soup is fresh but not greasy. The soup enters the throat along the tip of the tongue, and a strong fresh taste runs straight from the throat to the heavenly spirit. However, how can there be a medicinal smell in this chicken soup? Mu Xuan patted his mouth a few times, felt it, and blurted out the names of several medicinal herbs. It can only be said that the information retrieval function in Mu Xian's mind is really awesome. As long as the taste can be described, you can know what the medicine is. Oh, old man. I saw that the shopkeeper seemed interested in practicing martial arts, so I thought of a person from the martial arts world who had helped me before. That person gave me a prescription. That person practiced martial arts, and you also practiced martial arts. I thought to myself, this prescription should be useful for you, so I added some ingredients. Zhao Bo smiled and said, and Mu Xian's face changed instantly upon hearing the words. He glanced at the chicken soup in his hand and then at Zhao Bo, wanting to cry without tears, and quickly felt his pulse. If the pulse is normal, it means that the flow of qi and blood in the body is becoming faster and faster. What prescription? Mu Xian quickly asked, and Zhao Bo took out a piece of paper from his pocket. Mu Xian reached out to take it, and his face became increasingly ugly. This prescription was not recorded in the medical books in his mind. At present, Mu Xian has not fully integrated the medical classics and pharmacopoeia in his mind, so he cannot distinguish the effects of these medicinal herbs combined for a moment. However, the 2 or 3 medicinal herbs inside are actually in line with the herbs mentioned in the medicinal bath prescription that Lao Bai gave himself. Mu Xuan loosened his clothes. It was a bit hot. Damn it, old Bai. Old Bai. Mu Xuan swayed and ran towards the inn across from him. In the clinic, Zhao Bo chuckled as he watched Mu Xian's figure, then turned around and went to the counter to set prices for various medicinal herbs and register them. Old Bai. Mu Xian's legs and feet are a bit soft. You got hot water, why is your face so red? When Lao Bai saw Mu Xian come in, he smiled and said, but when he saw the flustered expression on Mu Xian's face, he immediately put aside his smile and helped Mu Xian to his room in the backyard. Coincidentally, Xiao Bei had gone out to play and there was no one in the room. Aren't you a doctor? Diagnose your own pulse. Old Bai saw Mu Xian's blush becoming more and more obvious, and hurriedly said. I don't know the origin of this prescription either. I can only see that it seems to be acting on meridians. Mu Xian panted heavily and then said. Upon hearing this, Lao Bai frowned and quickly sat behind Mu Xian. Hold on a bit, I'll help you adjust it and see if it's useful. As the old vernacular fell, Mu Xian only felt a refreshing sensation in an instant, and even moaned comfortably. For a long time, Lao Bai finished his work and looked at Mu Xian with a very complicated expression. Your recipe is not easy. Lao Bai sighed and said. What's going on? Mu Xian couldn't understand. Let me put it this way, if you were to take a normal medicinal bath, you would have to spend a month expanding and combing your meridians through the bath before you could practice your internal skills. But now, you can directly cultivate your internal skills. Old Bai Dao returned the prescription in his hand to Mu Xian. Mu Xian took the prescription, still feeling a bit confused. Besides, you're not easy, kid. Old Bai said, his envy in his eyes couldn't be concealed. I have seen many people, but not a single one has a bone like yours. Let me put it this way, if you don't practice martial arts, you'll be blind as a person. Mu Xuan listened to Old Bai's words and smiled proudly. It was because the man had fully utilized his arm strength, bones, agility, and intelligence. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been unable to see the mysteries in the prescription just now. Now he can see that this prescription works on the meridians, which is the effect of enlightenment. Mu Xian's insight helps him quickly understand the various medical classics in his mind. What about the martial arts moves? Mu Xian continued to ask. Now I can practice my internal skills, saving a month of time. For Mu Xian, that's an unexpected joy. I just used my internal energy to comb your meridians, and I can feel that your physical fitness is good. According to the standard of a normal person, at this level, you can already start practicing martial arts moves. However, geniuses cannot be judged by common sense. My suggestion is to practice steadily for 2 months. During this period, you should first cultivate your internal skills. Lao Bai suggested, but Mu Xian thought so. After a brief conversation with Lao Bai, Mu Xian hurriedly returned to the clinic. Zhao Bo, what exactly is your background? Mu Xuan is not a fool. After the old man arrived, a group of people who came to apply for the job first had diarrhea, claiming that the extremely cold true qi had entered their bodies. Now, it's this mysterious prescription. If there were only the former, Mu Xian could still attribute it to the people in the Black Wind village who happened to know that he had killed the 2 of them. But now he has taken another prescription. If Mu Xian still couldn't think of Zhao Bo, then Mu Xian would be a pure fool. Coincidentally, there must be ghosts at home. Zhao Bo looked up with a smile on his face. I don't have much background, I'm just an old man who never dies. I came to Qixia town to visit my old friend, but it seems that my old friend is not at home. I don't have a place to go, so why don't I apply for an accounting position? I am grateful to you, old man. The owner has taken me in. If you want to practice martial arts, then the old man will help you. Xuan couldn't help but swallow his saliva as he listened to the old man talking to himself. The plot was a bit familiar. The mysterious old man suddenly arrived in a secluded town, met a genius in the town, and began to teach him martial arts. In the end, his enemy came to his door, and the old man died. The genius in the town began a long journey of revenge. Well, martial arts novels are all written like this, but Mu Xian doesn't follow this novel route. He just wants to live well, and Mu Xian doesn't need anyone to teach him martial arts. His innate invisibility sword energy is enough for him to use for a lifetime. Senior. You don't have any enemies, do you? Mu Xian spoke up and asked. Zhao Bo looked up and smiled at Mu Xian. This young man is too smart. If it were someone a bit foolish and killed himself with one bite, this prescription was given by someone else, and the previous small tricks such as extreme cold and true qi were not done by him, maybe that person would also believe it. But Mu Xian absolutely doesn't believe it. Okay, then let's have a showdown. Don't worry, old man, I usually seek revenge on the spot. My enemy has long been dead. No one has been my enemy for 40 years. Zhao Bo smiled and said. End of this chapter.